What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Phightin Words. Anthony SanFilippo is here back from Washington, D.C. I'm Bob Wankel, and we're here to break down Phillies' opening day win over the Washington Nationals. Never a doubt, Anthony. 19 strikeouts later, Phillies find a way. They're 1-0. Everyone's miserable. We're back. The Phillies are back, man.
Yes, it's absolutely back. And nobody wants to hear the excuses. Nobody wants to hear the rationale and the reasons why nobody could see the ball for 6 innings yesterday. But yeah, look, it was an interesting game all the way around. From the fact that both teams looked like they were, they were just flailing at pitches. There were so many swings and misses yesterday. Nobody could see the damn ball because of that weird start time. And it's not even about shadows. I'm going to give you like a breakdown of what exactly happened.
You talked to everybody right after the game.
I had a great one-on-one conversation with JT Realmuto after the game. And just kind of
yesterday, huh?
Yeah, he did. Although he did hit that triple.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a good conversation about it, and so he kind of explained to me exactly what it's like and what they're seeing, and so I get it and I understand it, and it's not shadows per se, but I'll explain that as we get into it here. But then after Shadowgate, the 7th inning onward, all of a sudden the offense showed up. Starting with Bryce Harper, kicked it off with his solo homer, Schwarber's homer, Bohm with the big hit in extra innings, then Realmuto's triple. I mean, they scored. They struck out 19 times and still scored 7 runs. It's like they are the most interesting study in baseball offense that I can think of.
Well, listen, you know what I know? Here's what I know. I have a little bit of a contrarian viewpoint in my DNA. I'm inclined to be a contrarian. And if you look at like my Twitter feed, I think I had 3 or 4 tweets yesterday. Most of them were pretty critical. And I think that over the course of our tenure together, anybody that's read the stuff that I produced or listened to this show or the old show or whatever knows that, I can kind of skew negative a little bit. I think that the fans in this city are going to make me into like a fanboy media guy this year, like full blown, because all I do is I look on Twitter for 3.5 hours yesterday and it's like, it's the same team. I can't even get excited about this. I turn on WIP. I take my kids to school in the morning and drop them off at the in-laws. I'm in the car for like an hour and all I hear for the entire hour I'm in the car is, this looks like the same team as last year. They don't play small ball. You got to slap it the other way and choke up with 2 strikes and move the runner to third. And dude, come on. They won the game. I know they struck out 19 times. That's embarrassing. I agree. They have to do a better job. The 8th inning with Stott and Marsh. You got to put the ball in play with the runner on third and less than 2 outs. Or you better have a right-handed bench option that you can sub into the game for Brandon Marsh to put the ball in play. I can totally get it. Valid concerns. But are we going to do this for the next 6 months where we're just going to pick apart every goddamn thing and be miserable? I had a guy say to me last night, in the middle of the night, because I made the point, I've never seen a season in my life at the start where the national media and odds makers are so high on a team, but at the local level, so many people are so down on a team. People are like, well, you don't remember the 2011 Phillies. I'm like, yes, I do. They got Cliff Lee and everybody was fired up, 4 aces. I know they had disappointments the previous couple of years after the World Series, but people were fired up that year. There's no juice for this team. And the guy says, well, I told you last year when you were puffing out your chest at the end of May about them being a World Series contender that they weren't going to win it. I'm like, wow, bold take. You took the field in May against one team. That doesn't make you some baseball savant. Get out of my face with that.
Yeah, that's the Russ Joy method, right? I mean, that's
I told you that one of the other 30.
Yeah.
I told you one of the other 29 teams was going to win. Okay.
Yeah, the path of least resistance. I get it. I get it. And I mean, it is, Bob. I mean, look, you don't want to strike out 19 times. They became the first team in the history of baseball to strike out 19 times on opening day and still win the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was embarrassing. Shadows or not, whatever you learn post game or not, you can't strike out 19 times. That's not going to work in the long run. But using yesterday as a this is why I'm not in. Like, okay, how about the starting pitcher on our side who was brilliant for 6 innings? And, you see some of these guys that are supposed to be the back end of your bullpen pieces throw the ball pretty well. Romano, notwithstanding, they get it done in the end, some big at bats. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just going to be a long friggin' year if we're going to do this every game, like after wins.
Yeah. Well, somebody, once said to me, a long time ago, don't read the comments. Like when you write something and fans disagree with you and they scream at you and yell at you, or they're on Twitter, don't read the comments. We may have to play this way. Don't listen to the people who call into talk radio or who are screaming into an echo chamber on social media. Like maybe we have to operate that way and just stay focused on the sport.
That the people that call into sports talk radio or that are tweeting at us, this team sucks. See, I understand that they're not representative of the entire fan base. Like, I know there are a lot of people that were excited to see baseball yesterday, understand the Phillies are probably a 90-win team somewhere in the neighborhood of that, give or take a few games, and they could make some noise in the playoffs. Like, I just don't understand. I just don't understand this overwhelming negativity about this team.
Yeah, we can see it in some of our comments already. I mean, you can see Smy Guy says people are miserable, and he says, I hate the I told you so crowd. Jamie saying that this was all I was seeing in the Discord group yesterday. I was starting to think I was too positive.
I'm glad it's in Discord too. I'm glad we're not just limited to sports talk radio and X, So I'm glad that it's everywhere. And the thing is, and I guess this is what I keep coming back to, is that the word of the day yesterday was type in the word Phillies and flaw in like a search bar on X. This team's so flawed. It's so flawed. Every team is flawed. Every team's flawed. Every team's flawed. There's a lot of teams that are pretty good lineups. They can probably slap the ball around a little bit, play it the way that you like to play it when you were 14 and your little league coach told you to put your hands up on the bat 6 inches with 2 strikes. And then they don't have a 3, 4, or 5 starter. Like every team is flawed. I know that the Phillies are flawed. Follow me on Twitter. You're going to see me tell you that the Phillies are incredibly flawed. It's insane to me that you have Brandon Marsh in the 8th inning and you know they can't hit lefties at least on this day, and you don't have a viable right-handed bench option to go to in that spot. Like that's a huge flaw. I know. But that doesn't mean you can't fix it over time. Doesn't mean they won't fix it. Doesn't mean that they can't compete. That's all.
Yeah. And Amy, I give you credit, Amy. She says, I must admit that after the top of the first and no strikeouts, I had those thoughts. Just thoughts. Got to stay away from social media. You got perspective, Amy. You absolutely have perspective. But yes, everything Bob has said is 100% correct. Let's start with the shadows, though, because that was an interesting thing. There was a really interesting dynamic. Both teams, first 15 batters of the game between both teams, 12 of them struck out. So that had to tell you right away that there was a problem. And I asked Real Muto about it after the game, and he said he was catching Zack Wheeler during warmups in the bottom of the first and couldn't see the ball coming out of Wheeler's hand. He was just trying to hope that it would be where he thought it would be. And he said, when I catch a game like that, I know it's a problem. And what it is it's not shadows. We say shadows, right? But it's not the shadows. It's actually the batter's eye. And what it is there in Nationals Park, which makes it even harder, is they have 2 advertisements just to the right of the batter's eye. Okay, one is a BetMGM ad and one is a Geico ad, and the lettering on both is in white. So if you have a left-handed pitcher like Mackenzie Gore, his hand is coming right through those white letters during the day where you got this glare coming off of the back of the batter's eye. Even with Wheeler, which is from the right side, the glare was there, and the Nationals were saying the same thing. It was coming in differently. Real Muto said, look, both teams have to deal with this. He said, from a pitching perspective, Zach and I are talking and saying, hey, they can't see the ball. Let's attack the zone more than we normally would. He said, you're throwing strikes right over the middle of the plate and guys are flailing at it. He says, it works that way as well. So, yeah, were the strikeouts a little high? I mean, there was 32 total strikeouts in the game. Yes, that was a little bit ridiculous. But part of the reason, not the full reason, but part of the reason was for 6 innings, most of the guys couldn't see the damn ball.
Now, does Jesus Luzardo come out same start time on Saturday? I think it's supposed to be partly cloudy, 4:05 lefty. So are you telling all the people out there to grab their sports betting apps and hit that first inning under and the Luzardo strikeouts? Is that
Yeah, well, it's funny because, you would think you would have, I was thinking about it at the time, like, man, the under would have been a great play today. And then, of course, both teams explode for runs later in the game and it hits the over. So that's the beauty of it. So, yes, you have to do it like, the first inning under or under the first 4 innings, 5 innings, whatever. You hit that, yes. Although it was funny because I also asked Max Kepler about that. I said, what can you do on Saturday with the same start time? He's like, pray for an overcast day. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's not an excuse, right? It's not, but it is, you have to at least put it in perspective and say, they probably strike out 12 times and not 19. If it's not,
this is just the starting point of all of the conversation about this team, its approach. Will they change? Can they make adjustments? And then you come out and you see them, 12 of the first 15 batters strike out. And you go, come on. And I understand that as a fan. You wait all winter, like, let's see what these guys got. You talk about making adjustments. You talk about altering approach. And then that's your immediate feedback. And look, like, you're sitting at home watching this going, like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I tweeted out yesterday, I was like, this is a great start for takes. Like, if you have takes about the Phillies, it doesn't get any better than this, right? And it's funny, like, that you fast forward, they win the game. It's kind of exciting at the end. They get it done. And I said, like, what are the big takeaways? Because I don't think you can really ever take away all that much from one game, right? Like, ever. Like, just look across the sport yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mets, they scored 1 run in Houston. The Braves, not a great day. A lot of people are talking about Michael King out in San Diego being the, Cy Young winner. Like, he wasn't very good yesterday. Like, there's a lot of things that you just kind of write off and say it's one game, right?
You wake up this morning and tied for first place in the NL East with the Phillies and the Marlins.
Yeah, rousing comeback by the Marlins yesterday. They struggled against Skeens. We got to the Pirates bullpen late. Go figure.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you feel more confident in saying about this team than you might have 2 or 3 days ago? Because for me, it's like, what did we learn? Yeah, they strike out a lot. They're going to continue to strike out a lot. They're going to have a problem against leverage arms out of the bullpen from the left side. I mean, I think that's really going to be a problem when you attack the bottom half of this order. And it's one of the things that coming in, and I just really didn't understand it this offseason, was you're so left-handed heavy. How did you not address that? And you saw it right away yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. I don't necessarily know if there's many positives that you take out of one game. There shouldn't be many negatives that you take out of one game either. But I guess if I'm looking for the positive stuff, you look at Alec Bohm and you say, here's a guy that you knew was going to be in the spotlight a little bit this year after the offseason, that all the rumors circulating around his name, how is he going to respond to that and react to that? Goes 2 for 5, gets the big hit in the game in extra innings with 2 outs. Like, that's pretty solid. That's a pretty good first day. Again, one day. And Jose Alvarado, to me, coming in, like, you could blow away people in spring training all you want. It's got to translate into the regular season. And dude comes out and he just was nailed for an inning there when he had to be in a tie game. Strikes out 2 of the 3 batters he faces. He's pumping 101 on the black. Like, that was good. Like, so those are the 2 things I look at and say, all right, good positives that come out of that first game. Negatively, you already mentioned a bunch of the things, but another one that I find utterly perplexing, and I think this is ultimately going to be a story, and we talked about this earlier in the week, Bob. So late in the game, or actually twice in the game, there were plays in center field that the center fielder needs to be a little bit more proactive on. The first one was that little pop-up that ends up falling between Marsh and Stott, and then Stott kicks the ball and it ends up, being an error. Like, the center fielder needs to take charge there and call that play. It's so much harder for the second baseman going back to try and catch that ball over his shoulder, and Marsh seemed a little tentative. And then on the tying hit by Garcia against Romano, that one, I don't know if
you were there on TV. Yeah. I thought off the bat it was going to be caught, and I thought that Romano's body language after the fact, and obviously it could be a little bit of disappointment mixed in, but I thought he looked surprised that ball fell.
So where I don't know if Johan Rojas absolutely 100% catches that ball, okay, But if you watch the play and watch Marsh, he actually goes sideways.
Yeah. He did
for
not
like
have
two
a read on it.
for 2 steps and then charges it. He has no prayer of catching it at that point, right? So I really feel like that is going to be something that may continue to crop up. And the problem that I had with this is, and I asked Rob Thompson about this, the last question of his pregame availability. I said to him, I said, Rob, I said, with Rojas being in more of a fourth outfielder role now, if it's late in the game and you're protecting a lead, are you more inclined to go with your best defensive outfield, which would be Kepler, Rojas in center, and slide Marsh over to right, and you would take Castellanos out at that point. And he basically dismissed the question and said, I've not even talked to those guys about anything like that yet, but I certainly wouldn't do it on opening day. And I was like, why? Like, why? Is opening day's game not nearly as important as important as the last game of the season?
And this is the thing. All right, like I have two, I guess, retorts to this. One, fans that are frustrated with this team, like I think it's really unfair opening day to be like, I'm not even going to invest my emotional capacity in this team, as I've noted at the top of the show here. Fine. I think that that's ridiculous. But if you're frustrated with some of the messaging that comes from the dugout and comes from this team post-game, pre-game, like I think that is fair. Like, well, I would not do that on opening day. Why not? Go get a win. You have to do everything that you have at your disposal to win baseball games. And that's what I don't get. Like, I wouldn't even think about doing that on opening day. What function does Johan Rojas serve then, especially as a fourth outfielder type? Like, I can appreciate saying we like Brandon Marsh. We think that he has the ability to take a step forward and be an everyday center fielder or an everyday outfielder for this team. We think with an increased playing time and more consistent at-bats against lefties that we're going to see that he can take a step forward and do it. Now, that may be an optimistic projection. Independent of that, though, you want to give the guy true run, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Start him against lefties for 2 months. Do it for 8 to 10 straight weeks and see where this thing really is so that when you make a decision on him moving forward, you say, we have given him ample opportunity. It wasn't stops and starts. But when you get into a situation, whether it's Marsh straight up out of the game or Castellanos, however you want to do it to optimize your defensive outfield, I don't understand how with a 2-run lead in the 8th inning, and what Johan Rojas brings to the table is defense, how is he not out there in that spot?
Yeah. I agree, Bob.
You're not doing everything you can with everything that you have to win a baseball game. And as a fan, after listening to that and seeing how things played out last year, where it was like, well, we're not going to keep our foot on the gas all the time. We're going to have these extra days of rest, and we're going to be super conservative with how we do this. And then you get the end result. Like, I can see as a fan having some anxiety about that and some frustration about that type of approach and messaging.
Yeah. And not only that, to me, it was a double blunder because in the top of the 8th inning, right, you have an insurance run on third. Okay. And 1 out, Stott strikes out, right? So okay, fine. You're probably not batting for Stott in that spot because, again, you have the lead and he's the best defensive second baseman you have. But when Marsh comes up in that spot against a lefty, don't you go Sosa there and then say then we plug Rojas into that spot for the bottom of the 8th and the 9th to play defense in center field? Even if you're not taking Castellanos out, I get it. But in that spot, I think you got to go Sosa because contact. You just need contact, pretty much. All right, double play ball would have ended the inning too. But other than that, contact probably gets you the insurance run. And even though Romano gives up those 2, you probably don't go extra innings, and you probably win that game 4-3.
And you're looking at the Marsh at bat, and he gets ahead 2-0, and you're like, this guy's throwing 97 from the left. Like, he's nasty, right? Like, that's a tough matchup for Marsh, especially when you look at the at-bats earlier in the game, and you go like, all right, like, this isn't a sweeping indictment of Brandon Marsh's inability to hit left-handed pitching, but on this particular day, he's looked very uncomfortable. What did you think the end result of that at-bat was likely to be? And you're talking about a 2-1 game at that point.
Right.
It's just... I don't know. I would like to see a little bit more of like an all-in energy. And I think that some of that last year may have caught up to them in the end. Like, as much as it's about protecting health, this is an older team. there's a fine line in terms of being so passive. And, that's a little bit of a symptom here that I think is worth keeping an eye on. Again, like, I'm not going to crush them for
Right.
one strategical decision in the 8th inning of game 1. Like, I don't want to make too much of it, but like, yeah, I think it is fair to kind of roll back the previous years and look at how things have been done and say, hey, that's kind of interesting. One of the other things, and there are some play the hits conversations that you have after one game. There's not a whole lot to look at, I don't think. What did you make of Trey Turner's day? Certainly from a box score standpoint, it wasn't very good. He walks once, and in 5 plate appearances, he goes 0 for 4. One thing that kind of caught my eye, and I want to know what you think about this. 1 game sample size, and in this case, and what I'm about to bring up is a 2 at bat sample size. But I did notice that in his first at bat, he saw 6 pitches. And in his second at bat, he saw 8 pitches. So, I mean, to see an average of 7 pitches, 14 total across your first 2 plate appearances to start the season out a leadoff spot, like, am I grasping at straws? Am I overreacting to 2 plate appearances? Or do you think that there was a concerted effort by Trey Turner to kind of be a little bit more, I don't know, not necessarily selective, but a little bit more of a battler at the plate, if that's the right word?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the thing that, that they were seeing a little bit more in spring training, that he was, having more elongated at bats, that he was grinding them a little bit. And look, I know we talked about the glare and the shadows earlier, but Mackenzie Gore had a hell of a game yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that you can do in a game where a starting pitcher is pitching that well is try and run his pitch count up and get into their bullpen, get him out of the game. Yeah. And Trey Turner probably did that better than any other Philly yesterday. If we're being honest, the guy who saw the most pitches yesterday from Mackenzie Gore was Trey Turner. So, I look at that and say, okay, that's one of those things where you just make a note of it, little flag on it, and say, put that in the back of your memory, and let's keep track, start paying attention. Is that happening more regularly? So from that perspective, I think it was fine. Outside of that, the swings didn't look all that good when he swung the bat. They just kind of looked off. But to his credit, he wasn't up there flailing away. And Rob was right. I mean, after the game, he said they had a lot of swings and miss, but not a lot of swings and miss out of the zone. They basically stayed in the zone. Their swings and misses were, for the most part.
I didn't think the at-bats were this is tough. Like, I feel like I'm Dave Spadaro right now. But like, the at-bats I didn't think the at-bats were as bad as the results were early in the game. I just didn't. Like, I actually looked at it and was like, this is kind of embarrassing. But I really wasn't as annoyed by it as I think most people were. I was more annoyed, and I think not necessarily even the word annoyed, but I think I was more concerned by what we saw in the 8th inning, because I think that is real. I don't think that the Phillies are going to strike out 13 times a game, for the remainder of the season. But what I am worried about is that when you have to play situationally and you have a leveraged lefty late in a game and you're in that bottom half of the order, like, I don't think the Phillies have an answer for that. And so that is what I circle as more concerning and certainly more problematic. And, you mentioned Mackenzie Gore threw the baseball well yesterday. He did. And it's not like it's totally out of nowhere. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the guy's Sandy Koufax or anything, but he did have 181 strikeouts and 166 in third innings last year. He was top 20 in Major League Baseball in strikeouts a season ago. So, I mean, like, the guy is a strikeout pitcher. He is tough. And, like, you factor in the elements that you talked about earlier, like, Mackenzie Gore racking up double-digit strikeouts is not utterly ridiculous. I just think for this team on that day, it was compounded by all of the storylines coming in.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. And look, and that's I this circles back to what you said at the very beginning, Bob. I think that we're in for a season where everything is going to be hyper magnetized.
Oh, it's going to be utterly miserable. It's going to be
like miserable. Everything's going to be hyper magnetized. I could look. I'm looking ahead, right? Like,
baseball's back. It's going to be warm this weekend. There's none of that.
Let me be honest. Like, I'm looking at the pitching matchups coming up, right? Yeah. And other than the finale of the Rocky series, just because it's Taijuan Walker, that in the first 6 games, I can look at it and go, Philly should win 5 of these.
They're going to be favored in every game. I think they're actually going to be favored in the Taijuan Walker game.
They might well because of the Rockies are the worst team in baseball, right? But I mean, that's the only one where I go, okay, somebody might hit him around. But the reality of it is that you look at these first 6 games, you go, Philly should be 5-1 after 6 games, and everybody should be happy about that. And then you know what's going to happen? It's going to be like, well, they haven't played anybody.
Yeah,
that's going to be the first thing you hear.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you're going to hear. And then B, the same thing as last year, right? Can they sustain it? Like that's what we're going to hear. And the offense is still hot and cold. Like we're going to get all that all the time. And as this team is winning 90 games, nobody's going to be happy.
Yeah, and in fairness, I mean, if we could just wind back all the shows that we've done, I mean, look, these guys are not innocent in this. Like they did help create this situation. Like you do lose a lot of that goodwill when you blow a 3-2 series lead, and you are supposed to have this impenetrable force that is Citizens Bank Park, and like you don't get done against the Diamondbacks, and then you get off to a hot start, and then you play 41-41 over the last 82, and then you go out meekly against them. Like I get all that. Like it's fair to be like, yeah, they do deserve a little bit of the skepticism and show me. I would just ask everybody to maybe, balance a little bit. Like, not everything has to be like, nice win, show me in October. Nice win, show me in October. That was miserable. You see, I know they won the game, but they struck out too much. Like, we just cannot do this the entire season. We just can't do it the entire season. We just can't.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
Just get ready, Bob. Just be prepared.
Be
prepared.
So, look, I think that this has been a fair conversation. You know what? We're actually approaching, like, go back or fast forward 5 years from now. It's 2030, and someone asks you, who's the best Phillies starting pitcher of the last 40 years? And, like, we are on the brink of the answer being Zack Wheeler. Like,
I'll go even further, Bob.
You think we're there now?
Well, I'll go even further than that. I do think we're there now. I do think Zack Wheeler is the best pitcher that the Phillies have had since Steve Carlton. There's, in my mind, and this is no knock on Halladay, right? I mean, Doc was awesome.
Yeah, it's also a longevity thing too.
But Doc was only here for a few years, whereas Wheeler has been doing this consistently. By the way, 12 straight starts of 6 innings and 2 runs or less. I mean, think about that. Going back to last year, same thing. I mean, he's dominant. But I'll go this far. I think Wheeler could well be the best player we've seen in the last 35 years, right? I mean, maybe 40
With the
years.
Phillies or in the city?
Best overall Philly.
Because, I mean, Jalen Hurts,
No. No, but the best overall Phillies player in the last 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have this in front of me here with the Phillies, 2.94 ERA over 133 regular season starts, 829 and a third innings pitched. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's hard to make an argument against it. And the reason why I bring this up is because he was awesome again yesterday. 6 innings, only 2 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. And really just one mistake, the solo homer. And it's almost like we have reached a point where we don't even talk about it. It's like It's assumed at this point that he's going to give you at least 6 innings and he's going to keep a team to 2 runs or less. It's like it's become automatic. And I know that I might be running the risk of jinxing this, but for all of the negativity of the end of last year, even like just what he did against the Mets in the postseason start, it's insane that they lost that game. He was magnificent. He's just been so dependable, so reliable, and so consistently outstanding that, I mean, when you look at why I think it's okay to be somewhat optimistic about what this team can accomplish this year, a lot of it centers around just how damn good he is. He's not just a number one. He is like one of one. He is that good.
Yeah, no, he really is. And yesterday it was only Keibert Ruiz who could hit him. Like the rest of the Nationals lineup couldn't touch him. And the 2 walks, by the way, he got squeezed by Alfonso Marquez on both of them. Both of them should have been strikeouts. He should have finished with 10 strikeouts in 6 innings. He had
a rough day back there.
Yeah, he did. But again, you can't see the ball, right? And that's what JT said that too. After he's like, I don't know how I was catching him. I don't know how the umpire was calling him. He's like, we couldn't see it. Like, and so it's fair. You got to give the umpire a little bit of grace with that. But I mean, yeah, there were both of those walks should have been strikeouts as well. But no, Wheeler is just automatic, and that's the thing about it's why I love teams in baseball that can throw consistent pitching at you. I just love the fact that teams sit there and go, okay, now we're going to give you this guy who's going to do the same thing. And now we're going to give you this guy who's going to do the same thing. And now we're going to give you this guy who's going to do the same thing. And yeah, every once in a while, there's going to be a game where they screw up or they have a bad game, whatever. But for the most part, you're going to get what you're going to get from those guys. And it's going to be 6 innings of work. It's going to be 3 runs or less. And you're going to get the best chance to win a game because of it. And that's what I love about pitching. It's why every year I will always pick a team to win that has that. Because that's just my philosophy of baseball. And so that's why I've been so bullish on the Phillies for the last 4 years. Even though I'm not picking them to win the World Series this year, I'm still bullish on the fact that they have a chance to win the World Series because Zack Wheeler won, and then the rest of the rotation 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, I really believe that's the reason.
Well, it's amazing. Like, if we were doing an Eagles podcast, most of the airtime would be taken up talking about Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts or AJ Brown or, name your elite defensive player, whether that's like Quinyon Mitchell or Zach Bohm or whoever. We do a Phillies podcast, and if you go back and just survey the last 5 years of our show since Zack Wheeler's been here, I bet you that we've done about 3% of our – that might be generous about Zack Wheeler. It's just like, hey, he's over there. He's going to be one of the 5 best pitchers in the National League year in, year out. There's really not a whole lot else to say about it. And he's not a flashy guy. He doesn't give you great, bits or sound quotes or anything like that. So there's not a whole lot to talk about. Whereas then you look at what we've done over the last year, we've probably spent 30% of the show talking about Taijuan Walker, which I bet you if you're like the Phillies, like if you listen to our shows, you go on Twitter, you watch like how the fan base and media reacts to certain things, you go like, yeah, I know, guys, like that's not great. Like it isn't, you're right. But like, hey, you're kind of overlooking the main point here. You're missing the much more important piece in this whole thing. I just almost felt like we probably, unless he gets hurt or unless there's something that goes totally sideways, like we probably won't talk about Zack Wheeler again until like May. It'll just come up like, oh, damn, he was really good again. So it's like, I wanted to almost like say, hey, let's give him 5 minutes of time here.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be funny. Like we usually talk about Zack Wheeler when he has a bad outing.
Yeah. Like, are you concerned? No. Okay. Let's turn. That's really it. That is our conversation about Zack Wheeler. He'll have 2 starts consecutively where he's not great. And you go, are you concerned? Well, no, because if I look at his last 125 starts, there's really no reason to be. Move on. So, we'll see what happens there. Listen, I do want to briefly look ahead at the remainder of the weekend. And then I guess we want to talk a little bit about the big picture predictions, right? Because we talked about the Phillies gave win totals in the last show, how far we think they're going. Yeah. We want to just do a couple quick predictions beyond that. So you have a hot take that you want to deliver, a couple bold predictions about the Phillies, and then we can do one last thing and wrap it up.
Sounds good.
All right. So this weekend you get on Saturday, 4:05, Jesus Luzardo and Jake Irvin. You got the Phillies winning that game?
I do.
So then you close with Aaron Nola and Mitchell Parker. Got the Phillies winning that game?
I do.
Then you got Marquez and Sanchez on opening day, the home opener on Monday. You got the Phillies winning that game?
You're going game by game now, right?
Yeah, come on. Like, let's go.
I said 5 out of the first 6.
You got Sanchez winning that game. You got Wheeler beating TBD on Wednesday against the Rockies.
Yeah.
Night game of the season, and then you got Taijuan Walker versus TBD at 105 on Thursday. So you got.
I'll bet TBD on that one. Right, I like TBD's game.
All right. You got a nice chance to get off to a good start here. I mean,
yes.
It really, I think it's actually important. We talked so much last year about you have to start fast, and they talked about it too. I mean, it wasn't like a figment of our imagination or some narrative-driven thing by us. Like everyone was like, this team has to get off to a fast start. I actually think this team needs to get off to a fast start. I really do. I mean, like, I think it's incredibly important, not for just in terms of fan buy-in, but just for like hey, we are a damn good team. Like we need to remind ourselves of that. Especially when you have this soft part in the schedule, because April does get a little bit more a little bit more difficult, gets a little bit more ambitious. So stack these wins now. Don't come out of April at the end of March and April 500. Don't invite the questions. Shut everybody up. I'd like to actually see the Phillies have a little bit of that edge. Like not us against the world, us against the city. I don't want this combative, thing. I mean, I think everybody's been fairly unified. That's been one of the fun things about this little run or this era, I should say. I don't want this like us versus you type of thing going on, but like I do want them to have a little FU energy. We hear you, and we're going to show you. And I think it would be important to come out of the gate and kind of establish that early on. I don't know. All right. Who's winning the World Series? We don't need to go division by division.
Atlanta Braves.
Atlanta Braves are going to win World Series?
I know. I know you're not a big fan of the Braves this year. I think that the delay in the return of both Strider and Acuna helps them. I don't honestly think that you got those two guys a little bit more fresh for the postseason will be the difference maker for the Braves. I think that they're going to come back offensively. I don't think they're going to have the down years that they had last year. I like their rotation. I think they have a solid bullpen, and they have an aggressive general manager in Alex Anthopoulos who will go get a player or players or pieces that are needed to win a world championship. He's done it in the past, and I think that they will. I think the Atlanta Braves are this year's team that takes home the World Series.
Wow. Okay. All right. I mean, I'm not going to be even remotely controversial here. I think the Dodgers are going to win. I mean,
that's fair.
No. And I think that, you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing I will say. Just looking at the scoreboard yesterday, I mean, I knew coming in. Oh, yeah, I look at the odds and I see like the win totals, and I'm like, damn, the AL is a little bit down this year.
Yeah, best 5 teams in baseball in the National League.
Oh, National League. It's like, you can throw up whoever you want. And I actually have a hard time. I mean, I have a hard time pushing through any American League team to the World Series because I just think that they're so entirely mediocre. Where did you even land?
I've gone back and forth between a few teams. Then I narrowed it down to 2, and I think the ALCS is the Red Sox and the Rangers, and I'm taking the Rangers.
Okay.
I'm taking the Rangers. I'm counting on health.
Okay.
Because if they're healthy, I think they have the most talent. But health can kill that team. They're older, and if they start breaking down, then no. And then I would say probably Boston. But I don't know, Bob. Like, I think the American League is so wide open, and I don't even know who's going to come in as a wild card. It's like I have the hardest time picking the American League.
I don't even understand it. Like, looking at the odds right now, it's Dodgers, Braves, Yankees, Phillies, Mets, Astros. Like,
the Yankees. I don't see it, especially with all the injuries that they've had, and I don't.
Yeah, then you have like the Orioles lurking out there, and like they had a nice day yesterday. They got off to a big start, 12 runs, and like Rushman has a good game and homers, I think, twice. And I don't know. I kind of feel like I put my eggs in that basket the last couple of years. Like, here come the Orioles, and then you get to the post. You want to talk about postseason failure? I mean,
yeah.
Oh my God. And I look at that rotation, and I just go, is there enough here? New ownership group. I thought they'd be bigger spenders. Burns gets away.
And they haven't really done a great job in filling that pitching need. They have a great lineup. We know this, but they haven't done a good job of
that lineup. Really, they do. I mean, I love that lineup, but that lineup really struggled the second half of last season too.
It did.
Very strange to watch.
Well, it was because it's young, right? And so it's a grind. And I think that a lot of those younger players are still learning the part of how to maintain over 162, right? I think that's probably what it is. Look, I like the Orioles. I think they should be a playoff team. Boston, I think, is the most improved team in the AL. Houston's still good, even though they've got rid of some players, but they brought in some interesting guys to kind of buoy that. I think Christian Walker and Isaac Paredes helps the Astros a little bit. I say there's a couple of teams that you don't sleep on. Like, don't sleep on Cleveland, man. They were a good team last year, and their pitching staff is really good again this year. So don't sleep on the Guardians. Don't sleep. Here's one, Bob, and it's going to sound ridiculous. Don't sleep on the A's.
Okay.
I think there's a good young team
Okay.
coming there, and I think that I hate their owner, but I think the fact that he's now like out of Oakland is like, well, I'm going to go sign guys now, right? He goes and gives Severino a contract and Butler a contract, and it's like, okay, now you're going to spend money because you got out of the city that you didn't want to be in anymore. But I think that there's a little bit of something there as well. So, like, the American League can go any number of ways. I think the National League, it's cut and dry. You have the three teams in the East. You have the Dodgers, and then probably the Diamondbacks and Cubs. I don't know who else. Like,
Yeah.
Padres or maybe, Reds or maybe, but other than that, like, that's it. Whereas in the American League, I
You
think
like the Reds this year? Are you like, because I know you were there last year. You were like, hey,
Yeah.
I think that this team might surprise some people.
I do. I like the more with Francona. I think that they have a manager there now who knows how to win, and will do things. Although they had a pretty brutal ending yesterday, blowing that game to the Giants. But yeah, I do. I do like the Reds. I think there's some talent there, and I think Francona will know how to harness it the right way.
All right, give me one Phillies, I don't know, bold prediction, hot take, like whatever you want to call it. Like, give me one thing that you're like, all right, I actually think that this is a thing that's a little off the radar that's going to happen here.
A little off the radar?
Yeah, like because something really stick your chest out a little bit.
Well, my big thing was that I think Bryson Stott's going to have an all-star season at second base.
Bryson Stott's going to have to hit fastballs at some point. Like,
yeah.
One thing I will say, I'm just going to piss all over your take here.
Go ahead.
Those at-bats yesterday looked a lot like the at-bats last year, where you're just like, looks like he's swinging a 14-pound bat. Like, come on, man, get to the ball. Okay.
I hear you. No, I hear you. I think it's going to
I like Bryson Stott. You like everyone likes Bryson Stott. I will say, like, this is a like show me year. You talk about like show me Phillies. Talk to me in October. Like, we're reaching a point with Bryson Stott. I agree. Like, I think that the elbow thing is real. Like that, you don't want to make excuses for guys, but the reality is, like, injuries, even ones you can play through, have a significant impact on your ability to do the things that you want to and are capable of doing as an athlete. Like, it's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to buy into that. And we've seen him own big moments. We know, like, there's been fits and stops and starts. Like, it makes sense. Like, you can see it. But this guy is given. People are like, "Oh, he should hit leadoff."
Well,
what are you talking about?
Well, he shouldn't right now. But part of my hot take was not only is he going to be an all-star, but that come the postseason, he is batting leadoff for the
Phillies. And that's fine. Like, if he does what he could be capable of, and what a lot of people, yourself included, think he can be, like, can do and be, I'm on board with that. But like right now,
no, not right now.
He hasn't shown. You have to show it.
Yeah, right now he's batting where he should be batting.
So here you go. I think that when we get to October, there will be a legitimate case that Aaron Nola is the fourth best starter in this rotation. I think that Wheeler, Luzardo, and Sanchez are going to. I want to figure out which metric I want to go by. WAR is tough because Nola throws so many innings.
You could do ERA plus. I think that's a good measure.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to say that he trails both Luzardo and Sanchez in ERA plus at the end of the year.
Okay. If that's the case, that's a great problem for the Phillies.
It's not like, and I'm not saying that take isn't necessarily like, oh, Aaron Nola is falling off a cliff and that he's going to have a 4.6 ERA. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I just think I think that we're going to get those seasons from Luzardo and Sanchez. Like, that's why I think that I'm higher on this team than maybe a lot of people are. I think that those two are going to be very good. I think that Wheeler is going to be Wheeler. I think Nola's going to take a step back. I do think we're probably entering the regression phase with Aaron Nola, but I don't think it's going to be some drastic decline either.
No, I think if he gives you a 3.5 ERA, you're happy.
I think that's probably to me that's probably the ceiling for him at this point. I don't think
so. You think it's going to be higher than that?
I do. I don't think that Aaron Nola gives you better than a 3.2 ERA the remainder of his career. I don't see that. Yeah, I don't see
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's going to be plenty of time to criticize Aaron Nola. It's one of my favorite things. I'm not doing that right now. I'm just saying, like, I think that, like, 3.5, yeah, I take that all day. I think that that's the best of him right now.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, everyone. I know there's the Aaron Nola truthers. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
All right.
You didn't. By the way, you didn't give us the your AL World Series win.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think I'm gonna go Red Sox. I feel like every so often there's this, like, somehow the Red Sox, the most overhyped franchise in sports at times, like, people somehow forget about them every few years. And I feel like that we're sort of glossing over the Red Sox. And I think that Crochet's that good. Like, I'm going to say Boston finds a way, and that they get aggressive at the deadline. They add, and they're the team.
And I think that's fair. Like I said, I was waffling back and forth between them and Texas.
We're going to get another Dodgers-Red Sox World Series. And it's going to be great for ratings, and nobody's going to care.
Hey, we have just somebody in the chat. I just wanted to bring this up only because, and you'll learn, Chris Freed is a big follower of Snow the Goalie, but he's also a big follower of used to be Crossed Up, now Phightin Words. And he has a non-game question. I just wanted to get our take on it. It said, CNBC reported yesterday that MLB will be trying to bundle local games into a national contract in 2028. Do you know how this would impact the Phillies and its deal with Comcast? I don't know how it would specifically impact that deal, but I will tell you, I've been hearing rumblings, Bob, that the end is near for NBC Sports regional networks.
Okay, that's a big one.
Philly will be the last soldier standing. I mean, it really will. I mean, it's the Comcast hub. It's their home base. It will be last of all the NBC.
A timeline on that? Is that like a
soonish? Yeah, I think 26 is likely. Yeah, and so the Phillies have that contract that extends well into the future. I forget how many more years are left on that massive deal that they had. So I don't necessarily know, like, the legalities of that and how that's going to impact the Phillies or whatever. But I will tell you that I'm curious to see, now that they put, I don't know if you saw, you can get NBC Sports streaming, and you got to pay $25 a month for it. Like, I would never do that. Like, I already have a streaming service that has NBC Sports, and they don't charge me extra for it. Why would I do that? I would much rather have all the other channels as well and pay a little bit more money through YouTube TV or Hulu or whichever.
Are you on YouTube TV now?
I have Hulu as my live TV, and the only reason. It's fine. I would rather tell
you, like, I'm like an absolute caveman. I've always been of this thought, like, I'm 39. I work and make pretty good money. Like, I deserve to have cable, goddammit. Like, I don't want to stream and do 4 different devices and platforms to get this and that and mix and match.
I have them all. Like, I have
bill. Like, I have 2 kids. Listen to this.
Go ahead.
$330 a month, right? And so we have the Disney Plus Hulu thing going on in addition to this. We have the Netflix subscription in addition to this. Yep. We have the Apple TV. By the way, a good show now with Seth Rogen on Apple TV. Just came out, and its name slips my mind. Like, worth watching. I'm like, now, like, damn it, I have to keep Apple TV. You add up all that, that's another, what, 40, 45 a month? You're talking $375 a month to watch television, and I watch, like, local sports and some streaming stuff.
Yeah,
I have to get out. Yeah. My friends have all gone to YouTube TV, and they tell me I'm an absolute moron. That every month I should go to the bank, drive to Wells Fargo, go to the ATM, take out $200, and literally light it on fire.
Yeah,
am I wrong? Is that wrong, or is?
No, your friends are right. Now, the thing of it is that I've wanted to switch to YouTube TV, but I have 3 things packaged in a bundle for pretty good price with Hulu, with the live TV, ESPN Plus, and Disney Plus. And now Disney Plus is starting to show a lot of the Hulu shows on Disney Plus. So I'm thinking maybe I can
I
bail
saw
out of
the
Hulu
Wolf of
Live.
Wall Street's being added to Disney Plus.
Yeah, I'm thinking about bailing out of Hulu Live, keeping the bundle, and making my live TV go through YouTube. So
Okay.
I've been debating with that, but no, I've cut the cord years ago, and it was the best thing ever. It was the
Yeah,
best thing ever to get out of cable.
I'm
Yeah.
making a move here in about 2.5 months, and I think
Yeah.
that I'm just going to play out the string. I've made it this far, getting screwed. What's another 2 months? And then
Yeah.
when I make the move, I think we have to recalibrate the scenario there.
Yeah. But to get back to Chris's question, like, I'm curious, Bob, what that will look like. Do we so I have, as you know, and I've let you use it a couple times. I have
Whoa, wait a minute.
through Amazon
Full
Prime.
Compliance with the law, and
You're allowed to share at Prime. You're up to no more than 2 TVs on 2 different in 2 different places can have a live event on Prime. But you can watch. I have the MLB package where we can watch any baseball game, and I like having that, and and it's worth it. I think it's like $109 a year.
I was huge back in my runs in the first days.
Yeah. I mean, so like that was whatever. So like I kind of liked it. So I don't know what this platform would look like everything in one place. And Russ makes a point as he's chiming in, not as himself, but he's chiming in from the Joy Media account, that this is like the MLS on Apple TV Plus, where they have all their games there, which is good. I just don't know where, what's it going to be on? Like where is that deal going to be done? And is it somewhere like Peacock that not as many people have, and now you got to subscribe to it? I mean, I already have a subscription, so I'm not worried about it for me personally, but I'm just wondering for the general public, like, what platform are you putting it on, and are you going to force people to pay for something that they really don't want other than for Phillies baseball?
Yeah.
That's my concern. I'm curious to see how that works out.
Yeah. Well
right.
said. All right.
But here's my one last thing. We had to get that was just because we had a question from Chris.
Yeah, it's a good question. I wish I knew more. I think that's something maybe dig into a little bit too here.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. Tyler O'Neill. How fascinated are you by this? Because I am. Now, next year, wherever he's playing, if it's still in Baltimore, it's still in Baltimore. I will be tuned in. But the guy has hit a home run
Mr. Mark.
on every opening day for 6 straight seasons. Like, I am fascinated by that. I'm fascinated. He's done it with 3 different teams. It's a major league record.
You talked about a post game yesterday. Anybody? I had to have. It had to be the story.
Yeah, it's this. I mean, well, the story. I mean, they blew out the Blue Jays, right? I mean, what was it 12-2 was the final or whatever it was. But yeah, like it's it's unbelievable. And apparently he has done this with like some kind of. He's got like some kind of traditions that he does every opening day. And he showed up with a box of Tim Hortons donuts for his teammates because they were in Canada. But I mean, like he always brings donuts to the clubhouse. And his manager was like, "Yeah, whatever works. Wear the same clothes. Whatever he did today, do it tomorrow."
It's amazing.
Right?
You know what this really all comes down to is just a guy that like it's all about feeling and confidence. Like something that just strikes me right. Certain guys in certain situations. They just have this groove, man. They just have this groove. I always go back to it's the first year I really, got into baseball. I was like 7, 8 years old. It was the '93 Phillies, and I remember the Phillies were playing the Rockies, and Dave Hollins owned this guy. His name was Butch Henry. Remember this?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Owned Butch Henry, and I remember watching the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock action news before the game, and they talked about it as like a pregame note. Like Dave Hollins owns this guy, and Chris Wheeler and Harry, like they're all talking about it, like at the start and the onset of the game, and he goes out and he hits them, and I'm just like, it's crazy, like how there's just like these athletes are so dialed in against certain opponents on certain days in certain situations. It's really, really weird. And I know that there's probably something fluky and coincidental about it, but like maybe not, right? Like, don't you think he kind of just wakes up and says, like, this is my day? There's just some added level of comfort and confidence that allows an athlete to do that.
Yeah, and I wonder if he's going up there looking to swing for a home run, right? I mean, because guys could do that too, right? They could go up there kind of like try and put it out of the park.
It's also 90% of the league, 90% of the time too. So yeah, he probably was trying to swing for it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's pretty much it for us for this for our first live edition of Phightin Words. Thanks to everyone who joined in. Be sure that you like the video, share it, subscribe so that, ring the bell so that every time we go live, and you can hop on and join us and interact with us here on Phightin Words. And you can let everybody know to find us on youtube.com/@Phightin Words. Of course, you can get the podcast in your typical spots: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get them. We're there as well. And we'll be back on Monday, looking back at the weekend games against the Nationals and looking ahead to the home opener on Monday. So we'll have to do that one probably a little bit earlier. Monday
I will see you Monday.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to be down there?
I will be down there.
Ah, did not know that. Okay.
Doing a little weekly column.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, I'll have to talk about that. So yes, I will see you down
some
there.
Rust a little bit,
Yeah, that'll be good. It'll be good to have you. Be good to have you down there. So so that'll be good stuff. So yeah, be sure to click that like button, subscribe. We would love to have you here every week with us, twice a week throughout the season. So for Bob, I'm Anthony saying thanks for tuning in to Phightin Words. Have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday.